Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role in short drama industry?
My name is Monika Dolman, and I'm a casting director in film and TV, traditional as well as vertical. But I've also been working as a vertical microdrama industry consultant and a strategic partnerships advisor and as a consulting producer on vertical microdramas all over the world.
How did you first get involved in short dramas?
Well, my first involvement was in 2023, I think for a project for Pocket FM. And we did a few projects after that, although I never really knew which platform they were for. In fact, the first one, I don't think they even told me it would be shot vertically. They just felt like a normal narrative project to me. And I knew they had different requirements. They wanted like soap opera performance. So that's how I got involved.
What do you think that's unique about casting for vertical dramas compared to traditional film and TV?
I feel like every medium has its own sort of acting style. But I know that what's really important with verticals is that you have every second of every performance has to be both visually and audibly intriguing in order to sort of play up that dopamine drive to get them to the next episode, to try to get them past the paywall. They're bigger performances, but I do sort of get irritated when agents or actors will say, "Oh, you want bad acting." It's not bad acting. We want larger performances. That they all acting is about being truthful under pretend circumstances. And I think within the vertical plot lines and within the world of verticals, these big responses are exactly truthful to how you would probably react if you lived in a world where everyone was very blatantly telling you exactly how they feel, or if everyone was slapping everybody else all the time. Like, I think the responses being big are as truthful as you possibly could get. I feel like that's what we're looking for in the performances. I tell people to imagine that they're scrolling through social media and then they see those reels playing on the screen and there's no sound. We need them to do something in their performance that makes people need to hear the sound or they need to click. But we need to be drawing people in even when they're not hearing what's going on. So every second has to be so enticing that we have to click it. We have to know what's going on in that scene. There isn't as much opportunity for those kind of slow, quiet moments, but it's just different acting. And I think good actors can kind of handle that challenge and see the difference.
How do you spot talent that really connects in short form storytelling?
Honestly, I've had really good luck with theater actors. They're not afraid to go big. Uh, of course, with verticals, there's a lot of criticism that we are focusing so much on what people look like. But with I feel like when we're looking for talent for verticals, of course we're looking for a soap opera look. That's what the characters would look like. But we're also looking for people who aren't afraid to go big. They're not afraid that they don't want to be small. They want to really perform. And I think when you're in 916, when it's your turn to be on camera, when it's your coverage, it's all about you, right? And you have to have actors who are not afraid to make the scene theirs and make their moment. And have luck with people who've done a lot of theater. Um, we've had luck with just people who watch them. I feel are really good actors. They understand what we're looking for. Just really confident actors. You need to be really confident to do this work. Otherwise, you're going to hold back. And if you're holding back, the performance is not going to speak to the audience.
Oh, actually, I thought most of actors will be very confident.
Well, I feel like even actors are very unusual sort of psychologically. Like you can have actors who are maybe a little arrogant, but they're not confident. You can have actors who I think true confidence is really about just knowing that if you're asked to do something that you know you could do it. It's funny, you can get a really attractive person in front of a camera, and even if they're really confident in their looks, they might not necessarily be confident in their performance. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but confidence is really what we're always looking for in casting because you want to hire somebody who knows they can do the job, right? Every second counts, especially on a vertical set. And you could have the hottest lead male in the world who, would look great on camera, would look great in stills, but if they're not a confident actor, you're never going to make your day. It's going to be harder for the other actors. It's going to slow everything down. So we like to test for that in the actors because you just never know.
If someone never acts or have any reels before, but he or she wants to get into verticals, what's your suggestion for them? And also for who in the film and TV background, but they are still want to get into vertical, what's your suggestion for them?
My suggestion is to watch some verticals first and foremost, so you understand like what the tone is, the genre entirely, like what we're going for in a scene, but also take some acting classes, get comfortable. There have definitely been an interesting 2 years. Like we've definitely hired some lead actors that had never acted before. And I always feel like we're kind of doing a disservice to those actors if we throw them on set for the first time in a vertical because people might think of verticals as being really easy, but I would argue that they're actually quite a bit more difficult than a film or TV, like a traditional film or TV project. Like my kids are union actors. They've been on huge movies, they've been on huge TV series, and sometimes it'll be one whole day for a scene is what they block out because they play with it. They do it a million ways. The director wants to see it 100 different times, but in a vertical, like ideally it's like one take, next setup, one take, next setup. And I feel like that's actually really challenging to do as an actor. You need to be able to make choices. You need to, no one's going to micromanage you. You need to know your character when you show up. You need to know the choices that you're going to make. If you're not a confident actor or if you're new, there's no way that you can possibly go in fully confident. And I feel like that could hold the whole production back. But I also feel like it's not great psychologically for an actor or a person. We've definitely had there have been a few times where, they've wanted somebody that's completely brand new and has never acted based on look. And then I've said, oh, I worked with them in the chem read and I really think they don't know what they're doing. And there might be push from the client or push from whoever to cast them anyway. And we usually have to hold their hand a lot. Or we had one actor who I think was never acted again after that. It's too much too fast. So I've been trying to get as many actors to learn the style and to even going on set in a day player role. We like everyone on the show to be beautiful. So like if you're very beautiful and you've never acted before, like go do a couple scenes, like get a feel for the pace, get a feel for the energy. And then we've pulled a lot of leads out of people who have done day player and supporting roles. I think it's easier for people to not have to doing a vertical as your first acting thing ever, I think would be so challenging. But I also think that moving from the vertical world to traditional film and TV would probably feel like a walk in the park. Only having to do like 5 to 10 pages a day, that's nothing to a vertical actor, right? Like, I think it's like the best boot camp for traditional film and TV an actor could probably have.
Well, you enter casting vertical in E3, right? Have you noticed any
Mhm.
changes in how actors are being cast in short dramas over the past 2 years and a half? If so, what has changed and why?
I think over the past few years, what I've mostly noticed is we're looking more at the acting now, which I think is very important. I've always been looking for the acting, but definitely at the beginning, I think there was a rush to get those soap opera good looks onto the screen by any means possible. I don't know. I feel like there's so many good looking people, and I feel like a lot of like the average person who's not in the film industry might think, oh, that person's so beautiful. They should totally be an actor. But it's so much more than a look to be a good actor, carry a story. And I think that I would say more so over the past year, we've been really making decisions based more on acting. I think we have that now that verticals are more well known, it's not as difficult to get many options. And so we can put more attention on focusing on the acting and not just focusing on what people look like. That's been the best change, in my opinion. And it's been really interesting to see the actors who started 2 years ago that have really loved being on the vertical set. And now they're hitting the gym all the time and they're taking really good care of them. They want to be a lead. They've been working on their craft too. We're focusing more now, I think, on the total package, which is my preference.
Have you noticed any like diversity in the casting in verticals or unfortunately no?
Yeah, so at the beginning, I was definitely told by just cast like white people. I think a lot of that was because the clients were coming from Asia, where they were already filming the microdramas. And so in moving here, they were looking for a body of talent that they couldn't so easily get in Asia. But I know a lot of that request for was also rooted in projects tend to perform better internationally when you have Caucasian leads on a project. But we have definitely increased diversity on and pretty much every project that I've worked on. I think I got 30 verticals in before I had cast a single Black actor. But now almost all the projects have at least like one Black actor in the cast. We've had some leads that were diverse. We've had definitely lots of supporting characters. I'm hoping that we will get more. I know that there's pressure people and like for example, Black audiences watch a disproportionate amount of streaming content. You're looking at an area where it might be 15% Black population. They're often like 30% of who is streaming. So I feel like it's going to sort itself out. There's been a lot of pressure all around, and I think that's good. But we're getting somewhere with it. I would like to see as much as possible, obviously.
In North
Yeah.
America, short drama are dominated by CEO romance. What other type of story do you think could explore and why?
The stories that they explore are not available in other streaming formats. So, like I recently was learning a lot about the werewolf stories, which were not on my radar before microdramas. And people have been educating me on the werewolf world. And I was trying to think, why on earth are people watching these? It's totally not my interest, but it makes sense that those stories perform really well in microdramas because there isn't really anywhere else to watch a story like that. But I think that a lot of the stories too, the stories can be diverse or a little quirky because A, they're to be watched alone. So the stories can be a little weirder or a little sexier or whatever because you're not watching them with a friend or family, but also because the budgets are low enough that a writer or a production company they're more willing to invest like $100,000 on an idea than to sink like $1 million or more dollars into the idea when it may or may not play out. So it can kind of be a good little sandbox or testing ground for different story ideas, which I like.
How do you define short drama and what's the essence of short drama?
I don't know if I would define it in one simple way, but a lot more than just turning the camera. Um, a lot of people think they can just take a story that they wrote and just cut it, and then that makes it a vertical. But I don't think that's not what it is. It's defined by those moments of mostly before the paywall, of course. Just those what's going to happen moments and constant wondering, constant cliffhangers, constant having to see more, like really racing to see what's next. I'm definitely, when I meet with producers or production companies or writers, a lot of them do try to just pitch a story that they wrote for horizontal and they want to do it vertically. And I tell them that's just not going to work, not where money is coming from, and it's not why people are watching a vertical. They like those brief little chunks and they love those cliffhangers.
Let's pause for a second. China is about 3 years ahead of overseas markets. What is happening in China will likely happen overseas. That is why I wrote Future Playbook, China's short drama ecosystem and insights for global business. If you want to tap into microdrama industry, start there. Now let's continue.
You've received some scripts from producers and writers and directors who write some verticals. So what's the difference?
It's really about those first 10 episodes or so. You really need to get people emotionally. You have to get them up to the paywall, really know what happened next. And most typically a longer film, like a feature film, is broken up into acts that are very differently. So I feel like in order to be a good vertical writer or producer, you have to enter the scene with a bit of humbleness. I always say that like if film that verticals are written in the same alphabet as traditional narratives, but they're very much a different language. And so if you kind of enter into the vertical scene thinking that you're going to be an expert because you've got 20 years of TV behind you, then you're going to fail because you really need to go in knowing that this is a different thing.
Can you tell an example, like what kind of mistake they will make when you receive the script for reviewing?
If I can tell that they've gone to, like, if with episode one and there's no clear distinction between the episodes, where there's no cliffhanger, there's no immediate introduction of a story or the conflict or the character. When I'm consulting a company on like how to write for vertical, like if they have a good idea, I always tell them that we need to really hook the audience in that first 10 episodes, or I guess it could be a few more, just before the paywall. We got to hook the audience. Um, and if they really want to just, drag it out, then I kind of feel like maybe read a vertical script or two or watch some verticals first, because it's just a flag to me that people will just be bored. Like if they wanted to be watching a horizontal narrative feature, then that's what they'd be watching. They wouldn't want to, you really need those beats. And some writers that have done TV and film for a long time, they're actually not bad at writing a vertical script, but I think that they have to unlearn some habits before really diving deep into writing for vertical, because I think it might actually be easier to start as a non-writer than it is to go from writing features to writing verticals for some people.
What kind of consultancy service do you provide?
I started doing it by accident because some network producers were reaching out and they were having a real struggle trying to get some like service production contracts with the different platforms. And I think they were getting in their head about it because like the first group of people that I consulted for had been producers on The Walking Dead, and they could not for the life of them get a contract as a service production company for the vertical companies that had like come into that area of LA. And when they showed me their pitches, I was like, yeah, this is a great pitch for film or TV, but it's not what we're looking for in the vertical world. When I'm casting a project that is like a feature or a TV show, pretty much what I'm looking for at that point is a famous person to greenlight the project. But we're not looking for that in verticals. We're not looking to get the project greenlit based on a name actor. We're kind of just looking for a look and a vibe of the actors. We're not looking to give like, half the budget to one person for their name. They also threw in a lot of diversity. And at the time, that also was not something that people were looking to highlight. So I just worked on finding, well, first I talk to them and I try to find out why they want to get involved. And then I give them a rundown on the process, kind of start to finish and the speed of it. I tell them the great things, but I also tell them the difficult things. It's very different dealing with clients in Europe versus clients in Asia versus clients in North America. A lot of stuff takes place on WeChat that we're used to doing via email, just things like that to try to get a sense of if they're actually ready to commit to doing something like this. There's also more money to be made when it comes to volume. It's not like you're devoting, 6 months of your life to a project. You might be devoting like 3 weeks of your life to the project. And then the edit process is very time consuming and it can be very stressful. So I usually have a talk with them to see if they're actually really ready to be partnered with a platform. And then if it feels like they're in it for the right reasons and they would be okay with the learning curve, then I usually help them choose a story or a writer. I help them do their pitch deck. And then sometimes I'll sit in on meetings with the platforms with them if they need help. But I think that it's definitely been over 25 companies that I've consulted with and I've worked with 17 platforms. And so I kind of have a good sense of what each platform is looking for. Ultimately, my goal with this was I knew that if filmmakers were making verticals, that they'd probably be like safer sets. And also in North America, it's been quite a struggle for filmmakers to get work.
As a woman, do you
Mhm.
feel you have certain advantages in short drama industry? If yes, what are they?
I'm not sure about advantages. I definitely feel like at the beginning, it definitely felt like a lot of what we'd accomplished in feminism as far as film went seemed to get thrown under the rug a bit with verticals. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that the viewership is largely female. Stories are really being made for a female audience, and oftentimes people will disparage things that are made for women. So I had to sort of reframe it.
Challenges as a woman.
Yeah, like I've worked with clients all over the globe, and there are definitely like some businessmen that I've worked with that treated me a little bit like I was stupid. I think for being a woman, they wanted to hear from a man, but once they realized I actually knew what I was doing, I think that was helpful. Um, but I think casting is very much it's usually women. Obviously, are male casting directors, but it does seem to be a largely female sort of role. And I mean, I've had to ask for so many photos of men without their shirts on, and I guess it's creepy coming from a woman. I don't know. Like, it probably would be weirder for a man to be asking for that stuff. I think actually having a female casting director or a producer is kind of an aware, like women are aware of what might be uncomfortable for a woman more than a man might be aware of it. So I feel like the more women that we have on a vertical project kind of above the line, the projects tend to feel a bit more considerate.
Do you think short dramas have created more opportunities for female creators?
I think so. I mean, certainly for writers. Like, I was really fascinated. One of my favorite people is Carrie from Real Short, and like she told us that when she was younger, she wrote on Wattpad, and she had like books from her Wattpad stories were published, and I feel like Wattpad was really a space for female writers. And I mean, these werewolf stories, I don't think they're coming from men. I think they're coming from young women that were probably writing a lot of these stories when they were like in their teens, right? And it's really given like it's put a dollar value on those ideas, right? Like they're not just like silly little girl ideas. Like they are stories people are watching. There's like to them, which is kind of neat. I mean, in a lot of ways, I guess now that I think about it, the audience being mostly female and being that verticals are what are keeping filmmakers working now, it's like in a lot of ways, it's women are keeping the film industry afloat.
Do you think the way female leads are portrayed in verticals has any issues or areas for improvement?
I've definitely butted heads with a lot of companies over like the rape or the violence and sort of, that the woman has to be perfect, pure, and innocent in order to like be an admirable character. And then like the women who aren't like so pure or whatever, like they can be beaten or punished. But I do think a lot of that comes from some of the rules in China about what can be on film and TV. And I think that it translated over it's just different culturally. With localization of the scripts, I feel like that has been helpful. And I feel like people have spoken out, but I do have to also remind people sometimes that what they're putting in the content of these verticals is not based on what people say they want to watch. It's based on what people are watching. So as much as the audience, if you were to do a survey, might say they don't like XYZ, we still have a like collective human issue in that they're only being put in the stories because there are people who want to watch them. So for me as a casting director, my biggest concern is not even so much what's on the screen, it's how it got there and how the actors are being treated like that day on set when that scene is being filmed. Because, for example, even if we don't see full nudity. If we see partial nudity, I know that, that's the edit, that's the cut, but I also want to know that that day on set, it was a closed set and that, everyone felt comfortable and everything was transparent, that the actor wasn't thrown into doing it. I would much rather humans be acting than be AI or CGI. But we have to ask ourselves, like, hey, if humans are going to be living out this story, how can we make it safer for the humans that are acting it out? So there's a lot of problems, but I feel like, they're being addressed. People are talking about them. And I know intimacy coordinators are almost, you can't really have a vertical set here without them now. And I feel like we are definitely going in the right direction. There's always going to be work to do.
Heard there are more intimacy coordinators while nowadays on set, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, 100%.
If yourself create a female lead in Verticals, what kind of characters or women will you portray?
I mean, I would like to do a period, like I like period pieces, and I've gotten a few that have been like really strong female characters, but I think they can still have romance. I don't think that having romance in a story makes the female any less strong. I think there would be less abuse, obviously, in a story that I were writing. But I think it could still be sexy. It could still be outrageous. I've had a few where it was pretty outrageous and it had all the slapping and it had all of the sexiness, but at the end of the day, everything always turns out for the protagonist in a vertical, right? So
What's the future of short drama, do you think?
I know that I've been working with networks for about a year. So I know that a lot of networks, like broadcast networks, have some really cool things coming out. But I don't think it's going to replace anything. I think it's just going to be supplementary to their existing body of work. Um, I would love to see slightly bigger budget, but I do know that, this model does depend on having a smaller budget. The best thing about it for me is we don't really have a star system within it. We can give opportunities. It creates more opportunities for people who might not be able to do a lead role in a network show just yet to get their face out there, to build a fan base and to prove to the studios that people want to watch them. I feel like if it will be it'll thing if the verticals are able to just create consistent work and become like a pipeline toward actors being put in different projects, because Hollywood is sort of aging and we need new young leads. We need new talent that are already celebrities to get their faces out there. And I kind of feel like that's going to be what verticals will allow.